Hello my beautiful people, welcome to the next in the personal year series with me, Raphael from Reydiant Reality. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, share, and if you should so choose and it resonates, hit that subscribe button. If you are already a continued subby, you know I love you for it. With that said, so here we are, right? This is personal year number 2. We have a different number for each year of life that we have. So 2019 will be a different personal year, 2020 will be a different year, 2021 is a different year, and each year you kind of go up consecutively through the cycle until you start again. So the second number, or rather the second year in the cycle, is the number 2. So your tagline for the number 2 is I share. This is the number that's linked to the divine feminine, right? And again, if you've seen the personal year number 1 video that I put out, when I talk about the divine feminine, I'm talking about a polarity of energy. This has nothing to do with gender, right? Whether you're masculine, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whatever you identify as. When we talk about the divine feminine energy, we're talking about the polarity of energy within any given being in any given state. So this energy, as you can see here, I've got my trusty board, is all about cooperation. It's about finding the rhythm. It's about finding harmony and balance. The number 2 is all about connection. It's about forging a balance between two things. It's about aligning this and that. It's about bringing things together. The number 2 is very much a bridging energy. It is a very receptive energy. It's all about connection or connective energy and also collaboration. So this is the year for that, right? And kind of try to think of it like this. Each number that goes up or down the scale, whichever way you want to look at it, none is higher than any other. The master vibrations just happen to be separate, right? They're an energy unto themselves. But whenever you think about the numbers, think about them as each one is a direct response to the energy that came before. So 1 was all force and fire and passion and fast dynamic movement, whereas the number 2 is about slowing it right down. So let's jump into this and have a look at some of your blessings and your lessons, right? These are lessons and challenges, and they are blessings and opportunities that may very well present themselves to you in your personal year 2. So if you're experiencing this vibration, this is what to look out for. And it doesn't matter whether you're having it in 2020 or 2058, right? It's just about your personal year, hence the personal year number. So your blessings. This is a deeply feminine energy. Now, if you're a guy watching this and you're thinking, oh, you know, well, I'm having a year 2 and what does that mean for me? Well, what it means is that you have this ability now, you have this opportunity over the course of this year to tap into your innate feminine energy and see what that actually means to you. How do you choose to express that? If you're a woman and you're having this, and you're having a 2 year, again, this is about, it will very often bring up ideas and opportunities to really examine what your innate femininity actually means to you, to discover what feminine energy is actually about. Because, you know, we've been conditioned to think that feminine energy is weak and it makes you this and it makes you that, and it really doesn't. I mean, hello, women women give birth to babies. Like, this is meant to be one of the most painful experiences that the physical human body is actually capable of going through, besides, I think, horrendous knee injury. Apparently it's so severe that it can literally cause you to vomit. Obviously, you know, serious accidents and stuff aside, but this isn't about me trying to explain that. But when we talk about feminine energy, we're talking about the polarity, about what that energy is able to do and how it is able to be expressed, and ultimately how it enhances the experience of life that we have. The number 2, one of the blessings also, is emotional. Really getting to grips with what you actually feel. If you're the sort of person that isn't necessarily usually very feely or isn't necessarily even very tactile, you might find that under the personal year 2, you suddenly become more comfortable with that sort of energy, that you are able to feel your feelings a lot more, that you're able to really understand how your emotions are total assets when they are channeled in the right way. When you find the rhythmic cycles of your emotions and you understand how they ebb and flow and how they, travel in cycles and arise from within you, that energy can be really powerful. Getting to know your own emotional state, having emotional intelligence and emotional awareness of your own emotions and other people's. This is something that may very well bloom for you in this year, and don't dismiss it, because again, it can be a real amazing source of power. So another blessing of the year 2, personal year 2 energy, is receptive. And again, when we think about receptivity, yes, we're talking about, so if the 1 year was the all yang energy, very masculine, very forceful, very fiery and dynamic and vibrant, then the 2 energy would be yin, right? It would be soft, it would be flowing, it would be yielding and accepting. Now, one of the things that people kind of miss, and again, because of, all of the hype that we've grown up with, the media, all the rest of it, hyper masculinity and hyper femininity, those things are caricatures of what it is to be a human being in a specific body, having a specific experience. When we talk about being receptive, when we talk about being yin, when we talk about being yielding and accepting, do you know how much courage and honor and power it takes to allow yourself to be those things? An immense amount of it. So don't let anybody don't let anything or anyone try to convince you that 2 or feminine energy or emotional energy is weak, because it is anything but. Especially, and you really get to know that when you understand it at a deep level. And this year can very much, the personal 1 year will teach you about yourself. Right? The personal 2 year will teach you about yourself in relation to the world and people that you connect with, but it will also teach you about yourself in relation to how others view you, how you actually show up in the world versus how you think you show up in the world, right? So when we talk about receptive, this is this ability to receive, to be sponge-like. Some people develop empathic ability, will it leave after this year? Well, I like to think not, because if you're able to discover it, it means that it was already within you. And I've always believed that we all have all gifts, just to varying different degrees. So this can teach you to be more open to things. It can teach you a year to teach you to be more open, more receptive, more welcoming and accepting of other things, other people, other ideas. It's a year for gentleness. Right? If you've never really been gentle with anything or with anyone, this can be a time where you discover how to be that. It can be the year where you discover how to just observe things as they are and see them for their innate beauty regardless. So when we talk about gentle as well, you might discover that aspect of yourself and think, I've never really felt gentle or smooth or dainty or, refined or anything like that. The 2 year can bring you those kind of energies if you're open to it. Balanced. This can be a year for you to find balance within yourself. It can be a year for you to find balance with the world. Again, with how you're viewed, with how you show up. It's a brilliant year as well. In the 2 year, it tends to see, if you've had a rocky relationship with anyone, from a partner to a friend, a family member, a boss, whatever, the 2 year energy can really quell that, because you start to understand yourself through the eyes of others, and you start to understand other people and where they're coming from. And because of this gentle, receptive, emotional, sensitive energy, you tend to really kind of open up and bloom and blossom as a person to encompass and allow other people to be who they are whilst remaining who you are at the same time. Sensitive can be a very good year to start some sort of intuitive training, some sort of energy work, maybe not necessarily energy work so much, but you would definitely be looking at, things that are to do with the extrasensory. So psychic awareness, mediumship, these are good things for the number 2 year to look into. Artistic endeavors, maybe not as much as the 3 year, but we'll get to that. And then finally, patient. Number 2 year. If you, I probably should have put this on the lessons as well. If you refuse to learn patience or you don't have any, the 2 year will really beat you up. It will force you to learn how to be patient. And this is why I say to you, you know, if you work with the blessings and take the opportunities that come in, very often you can traverse the year and learn so much about yourself and the world around you. So when we talk about patient, this is learning to go with the rhythm and the flow that things naturally move at. The 1 year, you create your own rhythm, right? It's fast, 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 dynamic, push on, make it strong, get to the end. You know, I can see the goal, let's make it happen. Whereas the 2 year, vroom, it brings that energy right down to ground and says, right, okay, let's take our time with this. Let's exercise patience so that we can really read and assess all things. Very observant this year as well. You'll notice that you're very observant, especially when it comes to bonds with other people or connections with others. So your lessons. All right, so your lessons are challenges that you might face. They're things that you may struggle with in the early part of this year, but once you get used to its vibration, that's when you start to find these things within yourself. Self-conscious. When you start to see, it's a 2 year, right? So a lot of things are going to be reflected back at you about who you really are, about how people really view you, about how people really see you, how you really show up in the world. And this can, you know, even if you're not the sort of person that's usually self-conscious, you can be like suddenly hyper alert and aware to how people actually view you. And sometimes when we have those illusions about who we are and what we think we're seen as, it can be ground shattering, right? Take this as an opportunity to grow, to say, right, okay, if I'm not seen in the way that I would like to be, what can I do about that? What can I do to change people's opinions of me? By adjust, you know, and not because you should, but because you may want to, especially when whatever it is that's reflected or reverbed at you, you think actually that's not acceptable and I don't like it about myself, right? So that's what we talk about when we say self-conscious. Emotional is also one of the lessons, right? If you're not naturally emotional, to suddenly start finding yourself feeling very in touch with your feelings and actually very in touch with other people's feelings as well, or at least more able to identify with where other people are coming from. That can really, again, it can be really off-putting because it can kind of put you off your game and think, wow, okay, there's some stuff that I need to process and assimilate here. So that's supposed to say clingy, not clicky, but I guess clicky could be the one as well. You could find yourself overly identifying with a certain type of person, especially if it feels safe and comfortable for you. So keep that in mind, even though it would be spelt QY. And clingy, you can find, especially those of you that are in relationships and partnerships, there is a possibility and it may arise that you find some sort of codependence energy coming through, and it will be up to you to work through that and ask yourself, okay, how can I channel this in a positive or a beneficial way for me and my person. So picky. The thing about the number 2 is, because of that hypersensitivity and hyper alertness, it does tend to bring you a very picky and obsessive kind of energy. You may very well find yourself, because you're hypersensitive and alert to things, you might start to read into things that aren't necessarily taking place. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice for this year. Don't obsess and don't look for things. What's the saying? Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Don't look for things where there is nothing, right? And it is one of those things, I love the cliches. That's me. I'm a big ball of cheese in that respect. The whole thing where if there's smoke, there must be fire. Well, not always, right? There's a potential for it, for sure. And maybe that's what you're sensing ahead of the usual time, right? Before the fire gets there. So opening up a dialogue this year. And you can be very good, very skilled at the art of dialogue, connection, collaboration, and cooperation. These are all things that you can do really well. So try not to go into the lesson side of this. And if they do come up, ask yourself, how are these opportunities for me to grow? How are these opportunities for me to change something about myself that I no longer feel represents the core of who I truly am? And then divisive. Because of the whole balance aspect, right? So you could find yourself like the 1 year is about extremes, right? All or nothing. Whereas the 2 year can be quite divisive, or that 2 energy can sometimes be polarizing as well, and say, well, you know, I'm going to play devil's advocate, and you could kind of get this whole either piggy in the middle sort of energy going on, where you're put in the middle of things, or you could find yourself, you know, almost playing both sides. So just keep a handle on that. And obviously, because you are in this hyper alert, hyper identifying energy, it may be that you're not actually being duplicitous, because you can really see both sides of the argument. How that is viewed from an outside perspective by somebody on either side, again, you know, this is where you need to consider this stuff. So what is the year 2 about? What is it a year for and to do? It's a year to learn to slow down. I've got my trusty notes here. It's a year for you to really consider, you've done the fast 1 year, you've planted all the seeds. Now it's time for you to look at what it is that you've started, and what is it that's gonna take to get there. What resources do you need? What plans do you need? What structures do you need to put in place? Who do you need to connect with? Who do you need to collaborate with? How is it that by sharing this idea with others and sharing the workload, that you are better able to create the things that you want or that you desire from here on in? This is a year for you to wait and see, and this can be quite a tricky one. And I'm lucky because I have this in one of my other charts. If you know human design, I'm able to do this quite well. This is a year for you to wait and see how things pan out and then move on them. So put the question out, put the feelers out, and then wait for the response to come from others. Wait for the impetus or the push to come from outside, and then you move with it. Whereas the 1 year was all about, I'll create my own track and my own path and push my own energy out to make what I want. The 2 year is very much put it out there, see what and who comes back, and then move ahead with it. A year to learn to collaborate and cooperate, right? And it really is that, especially if you're a one-man band, you know, like I am with this. This is a year to learn to outsource if you have a business. This is a year to call in colleagues if you work for, you know, if you work for a company or you work for somebody else. This is about forging strong connections and bonds with the people that you come into contact with, especially in your working life. And the reason being is because it will not only will you find a sense of connection, but also you will find support, the kind of support that you need. Take rest and recharge often. This year, especially in the 2 year, this is a year for you to really exercise the power of building in time off into your schedule. So just like you're focused on work, you need to be focused on time off. Just like you push and connect, you need to learn to detach as well. You need to learn this ability to factor in rest days, rest periods, rest moments is going to be very important for you over the 2 year, because it's, like I said, it's a very different energy to the one. The one, you were self-generating that energy. The 2 year, it will come from others. So if you try to burn the candle at both ends in a 2 year, you could wind up really putting yourself out. So listen to the body, pay attention, and don't push yourself too hard this year. A good year for bonds, unions, connections. This is a great year to find a relationship. It's a beautiful year for deepening a relationship that you have. It's a beautiful year for learning even more about your partner than you've ever known before. It's a gorgeous year for any of those things, for really taking partnerships and turning them into, you know, true bonds, true connections. Learn to be patient. I mean, I talked about this, you know, this whole thing with the 1 year you were doing it, whereas with the 2 year, you have to wait for others. You have to kind of move at the world's pace or the world's rhythm or the rhythm of other people. And so eventually you find your footing by connecting with other people's rhythms. A year to show up and work behind the scenes, right? So there'll be a lot of this because it is that slow, steady, planning, restorative kind of energy. It very much is, you'll be doing a lot of work behind the scenes. This is where, like, so if the 1 year is when you planted the seed, the 2 year is where the seed cracks open and it starts to feel its way toward the light. The third year would be when you see the little shootling or sapling or whatever, and then so on, so forth. So this is a year for working behind the scenes, putting together the framework and all the things that are needed in order for you to push on with your plans. All the things that you started in the 1 year, the 2 year is where you start to put the track in that you're going to follow in order to make these things a reality. Consider what you need in order to make your plans a reality. So really thinking about that long and hard. Remember, you can't do it all alone. This is a year for you to really understand that you can't do everything, and you shouldn't seek to either. This is a year for you to really connect and bring others in and to strengthen your connection to the world around you and the people in your world. Learn tact and diplomacy. You could be very harmonious and very the 1 is persuasive because it's about confidence and almost, you know, a little bit of bravado. The 2 is able to be persuasive because it's like, okay, you know what, I understand what I might need to give to make this work, and I'm hoping that in response to that we can find some middle ground. It's a beautiful year for that. Learn tact and diplomacy. That will be the biggest and easiest way for you to get all the things that you want this year. Try not to do it through the divisive or the manipulative sort of energy, right? Because then you're operating through the lessons rather than the blessings. But yeah, you know, consider that. Accept that you are being taught sensitivity. Whatever your inclination in life, you know, whether you're tough, whether you're strong, whether you're all of that, consider that this year is teaching you how to be more sensitive. It's smoothing off your edges. It's making you more refined. Learn how to be receptive, flexible, and able to move. And because the thing is as well, this energy, because you are in this year very reliant on other people, plans and things will be subject to change because everybody's on a different path and a different rhythm. So you need to learn to keep life smooth, easy, and ultimately fluid so that you can change as and when you need to. Music will be a vital, on a practical level, music will be a vital part of this year. Listening to it, writing it, creating it, dancing to it. You know, music will be a very big soothing point for you, and you know, it is for everybody in some ways, but I think this year you might find as well that you're drawn to different types of music, different types of sounds and frequencies. Because of that sensitivity, you might notice that, oh, you know, I've never listened to classical before, but actually I find it really soothing and beautiful now. You know, if maybe you've never listened to heavy metal and suddenly you think, yeah, you know what, I like this for my workouts. Because of that sensitivity, you know, you'll really understand, you'll have a really deep connection to music, deeper than you've ever had before. Learn to be ambidextrous with your skills. So for some people, this is on an actual practical level, learning to do things with both hands. It's a brilliant year for you to learn how to utilize the 2 hemispheres of the brain at the same time. So one thing that I know really does that, I think it's the Rubik's Cube. And there's, you know, those cups where they stack them and you use both hands to unstack them and put them back up together. That's a really practical, very simple thing to do. Playing guitar, you know, because of the strumming patterns, so you're using both hands, and so therefore your left and right hemispheres need to collaborate in order to do that. I think certain types of math do this as well, but I'm not entirely sure, so don't hold me to that one. But finding things that will help you utilize both aspects of both sides of your brain, your analytical and your intuitive or artistic. You're finding ways to fuse these aspects of self together. So your key piece of advice for this year: don't scrutinize too much or over obsess over minute details, because you could end up seeing things that aren't really there. That is, for each year there's a key piece of advice, and that is the biggest one. You're hypersensitive this year. You will be using, all of your senses, and you'll be able to pick up even tiny, minute changes in people's faces, the inflection in their voice, their body language. You'll be so hyper alert to everything this year that you need to work with that sensitivity and not see things where there is nothing. Ultimately, this is a year for you to live, laugh, connect, be human, find support, offer support, allow and accept support, be giving of yourself, and be prepared to see yourself as you really are in the eyes of others, and let the world be your mirror. Let it show you who you are. In all senses, so that you can adjust course if you need to, so that you can change things if you need to, or you can just enhance what is already there. With that said, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Let me know in the comments how your 2 year is going. Have a great day, week, month, year, whenever you're watching this. Take care, and I'll see you soon.